Welcome everyone to the first edition of SDG Action Conclave 2020, and we are conducting today's session focusing on SDG Goal 17, which is Sustainable Development through Global Partnerships. Let me tell you a bit about our organization. Youth Forum is a project under Alexis Society, and our team consists of inspired young students and professionals who are solely interested in creating positive social impact by conducting research on policy issues, writing thought-provoking and insightful blogs, designing creative social campaigns, organizing life-changing events, and interviewing leaders and change makers. As it is correctly said that the youth are not only leaders of tomorrow, but also partners of today. So we at Youth Forum, a team of creative and encouraging individuals with a shared mission, a mission to change the world. So, through this first edition of SDG Action Conclave, we wish to bring together the change makers and the leaders from around the globe under the Act for SDGs campaign, Week of United Nations. It will help to prepare an actionable agenda that will aid all in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals through all the initiatives and more. While the world leaders meet virtually at the United Nations General Assembly to take up trying issues and give a solution to the tough times, we are trying to do our small bit by taking action and raising awareness and initiating a better direction ahead. The turning point of the planet and the people needs to be now. Let me introduce our speaker for today. Today we have Kunal Sood with us. Kunal Sood is an internationally renowned strategist, impact strategist, curator, and an entrepreneur. As the founder of We the Planet, X Impact, X Fellows, and Novus, Kunal is on a mission to make the impossible possible. Kunal earned his MBA from Kellogg School of Management along with 4 master degrees. Kunal started his career 20 years ago in fashion and wellness sector and later trained as a global health scientist at UCSF, where he worked on a groundbreaking global health initiative with Harvard at Pukar in the slums of Mumbai. Over the past decade, Kunal has partnered with the UN to host over 37 high-level summits that include SDG Innovation with the President of the UN General Secretary and the SDG Youth Dialogue in partnership with the Office of the Secretary General. Kunal has a steadfast commitment towards transforming 1 billion lives over the next decade. By bridging the worlds of power and influence with meaning and purpose-driven leadership, humanity can usher in a new era of global prosperity. Most recently, Kunal launched We the Future, We Have a Dream, First Women, and SDG Icons that he debuted at the 50th anniversary of humans landing on the moon at the United Nations as a part of SDG Moonshots to democratize the 17 global goals as humanity's ultimate moonshot on Earth. Kunal is the recipient of numerous awards and titles. His ideas and capacity are limitless in creating a novel, innovative avenues. He's a change maker. He introduces much needed cultural updates to the society. We are so honored to have you with us today, sir. Now, I would like to introduce our chair, Kunal Mandal. Kunal Mandal is the co-founder of Gyan Space, a gamification company which uses quizzes and other games as a tool for personal growth and people engagement. He has also founded citybitesindia.com, a travel portal which helps travelers discover and book inspiring city experiences provided by local experts. Currently, he's on a mission to teach curiosity as a life skill, increase awareness about sustainability, and empower young Indians to be more than what they thought they could be. So, to take the discussion forward while trying to arrive at solutions through this session on SDG 17, I would like to hand over the conduct to Kunal, sir.
Thank you so much, Ashima, and a very warm welcome to each and every one of you who is joining in and listening in. I have a very, very special guest for today's session, and I have Kunal Sood with me. Kunal, a very warm welcome to you as well, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Kunal, today's conversation, we will begin at your early days. And you started your career in fashion, and now you are a social impact entrepreneur. Please tell us, how has the journey been so far?
Well, let's actually go back a little before that. And I'll share a little bit about why I started this in the first place. So I'm from India, right? And I was born and brought up in the South. I was born in Madras, now Chennai, and I had the grace of good parenting and a good family. But I was born, I often tell the story of how I was like a black Labrador in the family, born into a bunch of golden retrievers, right? And my life in social impact really began at a very young age when I was a misfit and someone that was outcast because I wasn't really the cookie cutter Indian doctor, lawyer, engineer, uh, you know, variety, garden variety Indian. And I had these dreams of a future, and I had, my idols were that of Iron Man and He-Man, if you remember him back in the day, and all these superheroes. So I didn't really want to be a doctor or a lawyer or an astronaut growing up. I just had this vision of making the impossible possible. And I think that's something that drove my life's work and purpose. I started out, I'll never forget, I was the Rasna kid. If you remember Rasna, I don't know, you guys might have been too young, but there was a drink called Rasna, which was like the Kool-Aid of India, right? And I was the Rasna kid that drank the whole jug of Rasna. So I was that fat kid that drank the whole jug and then said, "I love you, Rasna," at the end of it. And these were my experiences growing up. And I think what brought me to your question of how it formulated my life, at some point, I was so obese that my life was in danger, as in I was almost 150 kilos. And at that time, the doctors told my parents that he's not going to survive 21 if he goes on this way. So in and around 17 was my first transformation. So the relentless pursuit of transformation started with one of self transformation on a physical level. So I went from being 150 kilos to being less than 69 kilos. So that was my first dream, and the goal was because of Bruce Lee. Um, Bruce Lee was 148 pounds, which roughly I think translates to 69 kilos at his peak of how fit he was. And that was my dream. So I lost the weight, but with that, I wasn't exactly in the best health. So then I built myself back up to be more healthy. And that's what led me to fashion. And fashion actually, the dream of fashion came because I went from being this baby elephant in the room to like this lion. So that shift, or maybe even I always call it the Black Panther, because I went from being a black Labrador, right, to a Black Panther. And there was a complete shift in how I was perceived as well. But the irony was I was still a Black Panther, Black Labrador at heart, you know, with this exterior Black Panther, like really powerful, muscular, new self. And so I had to navigate that new world because people experienced me very differently. And then what happened was I wanted to be a model. That was my dream, right? If you're like a fat kid, all of a sudden you're allowed, you're in a new avatar. And my parents weren't exactly uh, thrilled with the idea of me pursuing that line of work. In fact, they were more excited about me becoming a Bollywood star, perhaps, than being model. And I had no ambitions of being an actor. So for me, what happened was by destiny and by design, I was invited to become a creative director and partner in a fashion house. And this was very young. I was a baby. So really speaking, the truth is I was an intern, while going to school. Okay. And I went to something called Parsons School of Design, which is one of the best schools for design. At least back then, it was definitely one of the best in New York City. And then I went to Central St. Martin's because I was so en- enamored by the art of fashion. And Central St. Martin's is where Alexander McQueen and John Galliano and some of the best, Stella McCartney had trained, right? And then I thought I'd have the best of both worlds. And then what happened was my love for fashion died after a while because I realized it was very surface. Not the industry itself, but my love for fashion. It was not for the right reasons. So I didn't feel like I was doing or I was going down a path that fulfilled me. And this was very young. I was only 20, almost 20. I was 21. 2 years, 3 years into fashion, I'd realized that this wasn't my path, right? And that was one of the biggest realizations. So I went back into integrative medicine and well-being, and I studied how to design integrative well-being programs and a center. And with that, I went back to my original love for transformation, right? But now I was focused on transforming other people's lives from the inside out. And I had the greatest gift, or I would say it's a gift, because I was invited to be a apprentice with one of India's most coveted cardiologists at the time, Dr. T.J. Cherian. And the late Dr. T.J. Cherian was uh, kind of like a legend in his world. He was a Padma Vibhushan honoree, and he didn't even go to get his award because he was busy saving lives. And I had the gift of working for the family business. So I was kind of like Iron Man by day because that's our trade. We do forging. We make automobile and equipment for the industry. And by night, I would be at Kalyappa Hospital with my doctor and Devaki. There were two hospitals. And while I was there, I would learn about patient care, bedside manner. I witnessed my first autopsy of someone who had cancer, and I'll never forget. Apparently, the person was behind me, holding on to me like this, behind me, like making sure that I don't fall. Because most people, when they see that kind of blood, they can black out. I didn't. But what was interesting was when they took out the intestine and they showed me there were just these white dots. That's all cancer was, the white dots. And I was like, and lesions. And they're like, the cancer is too far progressed. This person will die within a month. And I was shocked to see even just these small white dots could kill us. And so I took it on myself to study and almost master the art of preventative medicine. So I really started to study Ayurveda, yoga, and also augment it with real medicine. And that was very much the foundational core of where my life and social impact started. And then, unfortunately, it was met with a very tragic end where Dr. Cherian committed suicide or lost. I mean, we think he did, but I like to say he lost his life over a battle with his own loneliness and age. He was 84 years old. And I remember when I lost him, that was the day that my whole life shifted and opened up this new vortex where I really didn't understand the meaning of what I was doing. There was no point working for the family business because I wasn't fulfilled. I didn't feel like making money was a noble goal for me personally, although it's necessary, and I felt like I needed something more. I had to do something larger than myself, and that's why I embarked on, first and foremost, my first master's. As you said, I've got 5 masters, which is uh, my lifelong learning disorder, just accumulating master after master. And for me, it was very much a time of reflection, um, and figuring out what do I do in order to lead a life that's true to myself and in service of others. And that was the greatest lesson I learned from my doctor. So that led me to work for a company called the Institute for Health and Healing. And the Institute of Health and Healing at the California Pacific Medical Center, I was put in charge as the lead practicum intern of the death and dying unit, which is also known as the palliative care unit. And during that time, I worked with patients that were dying. And I learned a lot about not just them, but myself, and how much I really am committed to healing and transforming people's lives. And that shifted my focus to then becoming a global health scientist with UCSF and Harvard at Pukar. And that was really like a dream come true because no one gets that opportunity in life uh, the way I did. Through an institutional lens, I was able to come back to my own country and give back And I thought, like this superpower Iron Man, I'm going to come in, save the slums of Mumbai, and make these people great again and give them flourishing lives. And my God, was I mistaken? Meaning I hit the ground, and the reality overflooded my emotions with I'm helpless and I'm hopeless to do what I thought I was going to do because I was with Harvard, right? And UCSF, and we're going to change the world. And then I think I learned my second greatest lesson on earth, which is it doesn't matter which institution you come from or, which family you come from. What really matters the most is that you're really loved, honored, and certified by the community you serve. And if you really are certified by that community, you will have done your job right. So I took all the grandiose dreams and philosophies and ideas out of the picture, and I really surrendered to a, a life of service, and especially uh, a mindset of service to the people of the slums. And in fact, the opposite happened. When I came in thinking I was going to transform their lives, I ended up being transformed, and they ended up affecting and transforming my life. They taught me gratitude. They taught me abundance from the depths of poverty and abject adversity. They taught me everything that I didn't know was possible, just by being with them and observing, and really being honored to facilitate their voice in a community that suffered. So for me, it was really powerful to witness that kind of evolution of humanity and the resilience that they have. So that pulled me in that direction. And then the one thing I did learn on the ground there was that they suffer from um, a lack of resource and funding. So that's when, and that's when I took a U-turn. I was a global health scientist at UCSF. I'd just gone to a PhD program, and I pivoted to go and get my MBA from Kellogg because I wanted to learn the difference between the science world and this world of global grand challenges that face us, such as the pandemic here and now, COVID-19, to these extraordinary souls that lived on a bottle of water a day for the whole family, and made it work for the entire family. So for me, it was very much a lesson in humility, strength, and resilience. And that's what led me to then finding out about TED. And then I did the first ever TEDx at the United Nations. And ever since then, really, I've just been in service, as well as using my so-called God-gifted talent or superpowers of designing and curating extraordinary people, experiences, and creating the network of networks that hopefully will bring us into a better future and world. So that's where I am here and now.
What a what a fascinating journey, Kunal. Thank you so much for sharing such a personal story with all of us here at the SDG Action Conclave. We are grateful, and everyone who is listening in. There are so many nuggets of knowledge that he has just shared with you. That life is such a roller coaster ride. Only when you look back, you try to enjoy it more, right? Uh, even more than probably writing it at the time. So thank you, Kunal, for sharing that. And now, of course, you have went on to start multiple initiatives. I'm going to pick probably one or two: X Impact, X Fellows, Novas, and I can probably name them all. And you keep talking about these, making the impossible possible. So my question to you would be that how do you visualize, sort of making this impossible possible? What's your framework?
So it started early. The first thing is you do visualize it. You have a very clear picture in your mind's eye of what that looks like, right? And in the beginning, it was me losing 100 kilos, or sorry, 70 kilos, 75 kilos, going from 150 kilos to 75 kilos, or under 70 kilos, right? And I visualized that very abstract. I listened to music. I used to dream about me with, coming back into the room, this really fit, extraordinary human being, And I think that was the first nugget. And then that exercise stayed with me throughout my life. And I'll tell you one example for when I was in the slums of Mumbai. I never dreamed, I didn't even know what the United Nations was, to be very honest with you. I mean, I heard of it, but didn't know. Like, you guys are way more advanced than I am, because at your age, I didn't care or want to know what the UN was, even though I had a desire to help humanity. I didn't know what the UN or SDG goals were. I only came to know about the UN when I was 32 years old, 33, right? And the truth is, but I remember envisioning in my mind's eye, and this was when I had done my thesis in the slums of Mumbai. I was there in Mumbai, and I was working out, and I used to listen to this soundtrack of Blood Diamonds. And if you've seen the movie Blood Diamonds, it's about this guy, and Leonardo DiCaprio is one of the actors and there's this protagonist who's an African American who is kind of, and without giving you the story and being a spoiler, at the end he addresses the United Nations after the story is done, right? Or something like the UN. He's in this place where he's addressing a group of people. And when I saw that, I said, that's what I want to do. Not address but be the person that allows the freedom for the voiceless to have a voice in front of the most powerful people on earth. And I kept envisioning that, and I kept listening to the music, and I kept envisioning this is going to happen one day. And boom, out of nowhere, this ability to do TEDx at the UN came into my life. And ironically, it took us a year and a half to get that license because it wasn't easy to procure. And that really took a lot of work on my part to convince my partners and also, of course, TED stakeholders. But I feel that that's the first step. You have to envision, you have to believe, and you have to set the intention really deep in your soul for it to manifest. And it may not manifest the way you dream of. It may manifest in some abstract way, but it will manifest. That's why they say be careful of what you wish for, because it could come true. Because I believe that's what intention setting is. It's wishing for something. And then if you create this mind's eye version and vision of it in your mind, and you start cultivating it almost like art, and create this vision of the future, you can actually have it become a reality. And that's what I believe is the first step. The rest of it is all perspiration. You have to sweat towards getting the job done.
Yeah, as they say, the perspiration is what 99% of what comes after 1% of inspiration. Right?
I know, I love the 1% of inspiration, because it's all just listening to good music and dreaming it up in your mind's eye.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love how you said that visualize what you really want to become or change that you want to see in the world, and then hopefully one day we'll all be able to together manifest it. Kunal,
exactly.
One of the questions, because we have a young community listening in, so one of the questions at this point I'll put to you is, you have used your excellent skills in bringing the global community together and strengthening global partnerships as an entrepreneur. Could you tell us a little bit about how this has helped in advancement of your career, or any tips that from that, some learning takeaways then these young entrepreneurs can use?
So I don't consider myself self-made. I was built on the shoulders and walking alongside giants and other extraordinary citizens of the world. That's how I have succeeded. It hasn't been my way. It's been our way. It's never been about me. It's always been about we. I feel like the youth today have an extraordinary opportunity to unite as we versus me. Now, that doesn't mean to say that you lose the self of itself. In fact, you strengthen yourself so much that you become so powerful that when 2+2, the idea of 1+1 is not just 2, it's 1+1 equals 11. So side by side, you're stronger together. Because that's what I believe humanity needs to be, stronger together. So for me, The way I've indulged in partnership of the future is to really be very radically collaborative and inclusive. In fact, so much so that the person who gave me my wings, Lara Stein, and I are starting something together called We the Future. And We the Future is exactly about that goal of partnership, that 17th global goal of how can we start to partner with each other without fear or favor? How do we come into a future that we're not scared of who we are or where we come from? You shouldn't be scared that you're from a certain religion, caste, or creed. You shouldn't be scared that you're from a certain status quo of the family. Sometimes people who are extremely rich are scared to say it because they're worried they'll be judged. So it's kind of like ironically bipolar. The poorest and the richest are both ridden by fear. So I feel like true partnership allows us to, um, excuse me, I wouldn't say vanquish the fear, but work through it. You see, because I really believe that courage is not the absence of fear, but the judgment that something more important than fear uh, supersedes it, like love and compassion. And I believe that the most powerful thing you can do is build moral courage, the ethics, and the compassion to really partner with one another, to see each other as human first versus where you are, who you are, where you come from. So for me, that's really the most powerful way to partner is to put your labels aside and your wounding aside. See, a lot of the time in life, your wounding actually affects you more than your labels, right? Your labels could prop you up, but your wounding is what brings you into a place of not being able to share. So for me, true partnership's about sharing and really caring for one another so that you can be stronger together.
See each other as human first. Probably that's one of my biggest takeaway from the conversation so far. Thank you, Kunal. And of course, our focus goal for the discussion is SDG 17. And you have mentioned once that how most countries do not have resource problems but have leadership problems. And we live conflict. If you look at currently the India-China issue, or for that matter, the US-Russia issue, or there are so many other conflicts all around us. And one of the backbone of Goal 17 is efficient implementation. And considering that there is this red tapeism and hefty power struggle in every sector of work, my question to you is, how can we rise above this for probably a more sincere tomorrow?
So I believe that the most powerful thing we can do to rise above this is to serve something that's larger than ourselves. I really believe that here and now, the biggest problem is that of leadership. But I feel the bigger problem now has become that of dislocated resources because we're driven by greed and by status labels and cores that we've constructed. And in the background, we keep talking about an equitable future. But the truth is, we've still got, stories of who wants to be a billionaire, and only the billionaires matter. And if you're not in it to win it, you're going to lose it. And all these uh, these narratives are actually crushing humanity. Um, if COVID-19 is to teach us one thing, it has to teach us that we are only human and we're vulnerable and we're in service of something that's larger than us. And we have to honor Mother Earth. Mother Earth right now, I feel like it has diabetes, the early onset of diabetes. And it's like giving you these cues, that it's bleeding and it's starting to feel like it's got high BP, and the onslaught of diseases that range from heart attack to cancer are all in the making. And I feel like my friend actually Anthony We were talking about this morning, and he said that, and I was like, "You're so right." I used to say the world has cancer, but he's right. It's more like diabetes because there's this great, uh, rainbow of global grand challenges that we can pick from, and all of them are only getting worse, right? So for me, if we don't solve for the ego problem of humanity, we will never solve for the global grand challenges. I feel like there's a way in which we as a collective society, including governments, must start to appreciate there is no left versus right. There is only we are human first. There is no black or white. There is only we are human first. And we recognize that, we're going to move past all of these constructs, these social constructs that we have created. It's very important here and now because if we don't, all we're going to do is fool ourselves that we're advancing as a civilization, you know, and while looking at the world burn. And quite literally, the world is burning right now in the west coast of the United States of America. So I feel like this is these are all signs that we as human beings should listen to. So deeply listening to Mother Earth, as well as trying to reimagine capitalism, socialism, communism. We always try to make one evil, and the other omnipotent. But the truth is, we can be omnipotently powerful and still be like sharks that eat each other in the womb. And we have to stop that. We have to stop eating each other in the womb because this is our womb. Mother Earth is like a spaceship shuttling through space, and this is the womb. And we have to come together and stop really trying to eat each other. So the omnipotent power should lead towards human flourishing, not towards human power and authority.
Yeah, and Lara Stein told me a beautiful story of how she came up with the name Boma and how it's a part of culture in South Africa and other parts of Africa to actually listen to Mother Earth. I think, as you rightfully said, we should probably listen to her pain and then, realize that it's onus is on us to do something about it.
Yeah, exactly.
And
And that's go ahead.
no, go ahead. You
And
wanted to
that's
say
exactly
something.
so. The reason why we started We the Planet, Laura and myself, is because I started Novus to reimagine the American dream. Okay, because I was an immigrant. I really wanted to tell the story of how I love this country. It's done so much for me, and in fact, I wanted to give back to the United States for how much opportunity it gave me to unlock my exponential potential and give back to the future. And We the Planet was really started out of a need that I believe that we the people have failed. If you look around you right now, with all the success, we failed. You know, and you just look at the political systems in place, whether it's in India or America, we failed. We're fighting with each other like cats and dogs, for no real reason. And I don't think we need to have like some kind of alien invasion or worse, even just Mother Earth hiccup to help us realize, oh God, we're all in this together. And that's why we started We the Planet, to really serve something that's larger than ourselves, to go above and beyond that calling of We the People and start to focus on We the Planet. Because if we focus on We the Planet, I believe that we can make the impossible possible. That's what making the impossible possible is about. It's about reaching deep into your soul and connecting with your soulmate or soulmates. They're more than one. You're a soulmate of mine. Ashima's a soulmate of mine. If we could all treat each other as soulmates and really find that, identify that X factor in each one of us that leverages us to be stronger together, to create that superorganism, to bring together the best of humanity without, labeling you as a Congress party or me as a Modi ji party, or, it's just, there's no point using those labels to identify yourself with power and authority. What's more important is that you recognize that you and I together can do more than myself alone or yourself alone. So for me, that unity matters the most. That's why SDG 17 is one of the most powerful goals, because that unification allows us to become an infinity effect. Without that unity, I feel like all you're doing and I'm doing are pitting each other against each other to compete in a game that, is not like the Hunger Games. There's no victor at the end of it. We both lose. So I feel like that's where we win together. It's by shedding our fears and our titles and our, those parts of our soul that don't speak to the larger manifestation of our human potential.
More power to that X factor, Kunal. And you spoke briefly about the pandemic. And one of the questions that I have in that is, of course, over and over in the history, we have seen that crises have brought humanity together. And this pandemic is no different. We have, overcome in many ways organizational and sectoral boundaries and joined forces. A number of companies have managed to collaborate on innovating and rapidly acting on responses. But
Right.
one question that I put forward is, how do we sustain these, well intended partnerships and collaborations in a post-COVID world?
I feel like it's as simple as a switch of turning on the moral courage to stay in the same mindset. See, I believe that the mindset matters the most when it comes to these kinds of shifts in life. If you change your mind to love someone as you do your own child, you don't care if they're your blood or not. Meaning, when you adopt a child, if you're a good parent, you don't really see the difference between your biological child and the child you adopted. Eventually, they become one part of your family, right? I feel that's what has to happen in a post-COVID world. We don't switch back. We don't switch back to a mindset, oh, okay, now things are okay. I'm just going to do what I want to do and let live and let live, right? And I feel like here and now, we have that opportunity to switch forward and, dial up the switch and almost make this the new normal, not the back to normal, right? And I feel like that's the most important piece of this equation, is that we have a new normal approach to life, towards partnership, towards alliance, towards solving for global grand challenges, towards solving for one another. Um, and it's not easy. It's going to be tougher than hell. People are scared to go outside their house. There are people afraid to meet each other. Even when people meet each other, they're scared. So there's there's a lot of fear out there right now. And the partnerships you speak to are a small group of extraordinary citizens and individuals, including our frontline heroes, the doctors and the nurses, and the people that have no fear in going out and saving lives. And I feel like we can learn a lot from that mindset. We can learn a lot from that state of being, right? And I think that's what we need to inculcate in our own lives. We don't need to lie about the future. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tougher than this. Unfortunately, whatever we've done so far has kind of set the precedent for the future. And what we need to do, really speaking, is come together as one. And I do believe the only way you can do that is by allowing your fear to guide you to a higher ground of being a better human being, or going from being just a global citizen to an extraordinary citizen, and really serving people just like our frontline workers. They're not getting paid enough. None of them are becoming billionaires. No one's, on the Forbes billionaire list who's on the front lines as nurses and doctors. None of them are being, written up as the new future list of the world. Sure, they're like these things called COVID heroes, but they're going to be forgotten post-COVID, right? And I feel like that's what needs to be remedied. This idea of forgetting. You must remember what these people did to save lives. You must remember that they didn't do it because they were going to IPO with $100 million valuation or $1 billion valuation. None of these doctors, none of these nurses, none of these postal care workers, none of these guys who are like doing your delivery and making sure you're okay, these essential workers, have any care of being on a list. They have one thing and one thing only that drives them, which is to protect and save humanity, right? And I feel like that's what we need to do here and now. We need to protect, save, and serve humanity. So I feel like that's what's going to help us drive forward if we really put that front and center.
Yeah, I really like how you have made fear into a positive force for change. And that's a really great construct mindset that everyone who is listening in, you can learn from. And as you rightfully said, that the frontline workers, we should definitely learn from them that how larger than life, sort of it's like they are saving humanity. That's the literal truth. And you and I are sitting at home most of the
We're
time, and
blessed to be able to do that.
exactly. And it's because that they have kept the ecosystem safe for us at times. So of course, I mean that's a very great point that you made there. Now I'll go to the story. In your TEDx talk, you talked about pursuit of happiness beyond one's own happiness. From your experience at working with the Mumbai slums, which you shared with us, give us some insights on how we can broaden our perception of happiness.
So my TEDx talk was about, it's funny because I did two talks. I did a TED talk, which was about exponential happiness. But my TEDx talk was a prelude to my TED talk, which was about transforming 1 billion lives by losing 1 pound at a time. So this was in 2013. I didn't know it was going to be published, actually. I just went up on stage to welcome the group and tell them that, welcome to our summit. And I'm just going to share a small idea about what I hope for the world. And what I said was that, my life was changed, as I told you, being in the slums of Mumbai. And I felt like there was this inequitable gap between the obese, like myself, or people that had struggled from obesity, and those that struggled from hunger and malnutrition. So I came up with this idea of that for every pound that I lose, I would help a child in the slums of Mumbai gain a healthy pound. Right. So in that way of starting a global health revolution. Now that fast forward 4 years later, I was deeply honored by becoming a TED resident. And as part of a TED resident, you get to do a TED talk, an actual TED talk, which is huge. And so when I did that TED talk, I spoke to the idea of exponential happiness. And the idea of exponential happiness was to go into a state of joy and abundance through service and through commitment towards solving for something that's deeply meaningful and purpose driven. So how do I become an exponential leader of the future? And that is exponential happiness. How do I build the moral courage, the expansive compassion, and the effective altruism needed to really go above and beyond myself and be in service of something that's larger than me to fulfill the joy within, right? I believe happiness on its own is important, but it's fleeting. It's a state that comes and goes, It has this wave-like effect of, whereas true exponential happiness is that ever-fulfilled sense of being in a constant state of joy and service. And that, I believe, is what I feel is so important here and now, is to be in a state of joy and kindness around service, to build the inner resilience, the emotional resilience within to serve people in the world. And I really feel that exponential happiness is not about me. It's not about my happiness. It's about the collective happiness. It's about us. Again, it's about we, right? And there's a beautiful African proverb that taught me this. It's that if you want to go fast, you go alone. You can go really fast, like a cheetah, right? But if you want to go far, like a lion, you go together. You go with the team, you go with the tribe, you go with your family, you go with a group of extraordinary people like Ashima and yourself, right? And that to me is the most powerful thing. Now, here's the beauty of today. Because of the technology and the resources we have, we can do both. We can go faster and further than we've ever gone before. And to me, that's a game changer, meaning that today we don't have to just go fast alone. We can go faster together. We don't have to go further just together. We can go further together and alone. So to me, that's the beauty of today. It allows you to do both, and sometimes you have to go it alone. Sometimes you have to make those hard decisions. Like sometimes one person can climb the mountain, not everyone, because the others have to protect the people that are together. So you take that group decision as a group, but you always remember that you're there together to serve one another. And that's what I feel is so important here and now, is that mindset of strength, resilience, and service. That's what is at the heart of exponential happiness. If you close your eyes, and know when you close your eyes that the people you're with will always have your back. To me, that is exponential happiness. The people that can actually be together without fear. That to me is exponential happiness. The people that can serve each other without favor. That is exponential happiness.
Thank you, Kunal. And on that note of exponential leadership and happiness, and going faster and further, my next question to you would be that you are considered as a rare and gifted Renaissance man who has deep passion for evoking excellence in others. What I want to know from you is how young people with minimal experience can turn a problem into an opportunity, more like making a plus out of two minuses.
Well, the first step is that you are good at math, which I wasn't. So if you're a young person out there, definitely do your homework and definitely get good at math. You will thank me when you get to my age. It's better to be good at math as a youngster than try to get good at it as an older person. But on a more serious note, the biggest way to look at a problem as an opportunity is to build the moral courage to take it on head on. So for me, I believe that making the impossible possible is about really going the distance and sprinting and knowing that it's not just a sprint but a marathon. So for me, I always invite people, when you see a problem, the way to see it as an opportunity is to put on that strength armor of yours, whatever it may be. For me, it was, I always say that I used to morph from a black Labrador to being a Black Panther. And the truth is, it was a problem. I was bullied in school. And by the way, bullies don't come as one. They usually come in packs. If you look at even like superhero movies, right? Thanos had like a bunch of folks he'd come with. He'd never come alone to fight. Whereas Iron Man show up on his own, you know? So I think the most important thing is to know that first find your tribe, of course, and find those Avengers of the future of the real world that will have your back when you need it. But secondly, find a way to strengthen your own core. Find a way to, if you're being bullied, become a bully's bully. That's what happened to me. I had to, after all the suffering and pain, I had two options. Either I would become a victim of my circumstances, or I would rise above because I knew I didn't have any collaborators. I didn't have any, partners. I didn't have anyone that was going to save me. So I had to realize that in the continuum of being a perpetrator, victim, collaborator, and a bystander, I was being a bystander, right? And the bystander is a very powerful lever because it's like a fulcrum. You can turn it a little bit and you can become a hero. So from being a bystander, I went ahead and just turned a little bit and allowed myself to stand up for myself, and I became a Black Panther. So I didn't even know this was possible, but I leaned into the fact that I have to do something because I have two choices: to live in victim mode as a bystander, or take a stand and become the protector and guardian of myself as well as others that can't protect themselves. And I chose to be a guardian and a protector. And when I made that shift and that transformation from a black lab into a black panther, yes, it was scary, both for me as well as people around me, right? Especially for the bullies. They did not even know that that could happen. I wasn't like a thin, scrawny kid. I was like a really big elephant in the room, and I was just always saying, please don't bully me. I just want to be loving and affectionate and good to people. And they nudged me enough to be, like really probed me to a point where I had to truly transform. And that transformation is what I would invite people to do. You have to transform inside. You have to transform from within to have true outward impact. To see an opportunity, you need inner transformation so that you can identify not just the opportunity, but the solution to meet that opportunity. And for me, in this personal old psychodynamic self, it was shedding that beautiful rescue dog of being loyal, loving, and kind as a black Labrador and embracing this ferocious, more powerful, protective guardian angel of a black panther. And I feel like that's what you have to do. When you see an opportunity, you have to build the moral courage, the strength, and the resilience to stand up and really embrace your own power. Because it really can be limitless. The power within, we've seen it. I mean, Mahatma Gandhi was not exactly a tough guy. He was in a loincloth and he was 80-something years old, and he freed our nation. So the power of the mind that connects to the heart, I really believe once you do that, and you listen to your gut will never lie to you. So really meet opportunity with strength, resilience, and being prepared, but also use the soft connection of the mind, body, soul to guide you as to whether this is the right opportunity or not.
Stand up and embrace the power within. So well put, Kunal. Thank you for sharing such beautiful insights with our audience. You once said that, if I remember it correctly, impacting 1 billion lives is more powerful than making $1 billion.
For me.
Yes, for you.
And I want
to
own it as my state. I don't want people to think that everyone has to own that. I believe that impacting 1 billion lives or transforming 1 billion lives is way more powerful than wasting time and, in relentless pursuit of power and money for money's sake or wealth for wealth's sake.
So what I want to know from you is how are you going to impact 1 billion lives moving forward? And how can the young people who are listening us or watching us right now contribute to that?
So my first step is to come home to India for the first time in a decade and start to give back to the fruits of India. That's my dream. I really believe that India can be a model nation for the world. My dream is to globalize India with the youth, side by side, hand in hand, back to back, and to always have each other's backs. I do believe America is also a great force for the future. I love this country with all my heart. It's served me, it's protected me, it's given me wings to fly. But I do believe that the first way I'm going to give back is to come back and explore how we as a nation can be a truly extraordinary nation for the world. How can India become exponential India? One of my friends is Salim Ismail, who wrote the book Exponential Organizations. And we've been talking about doing something in India with the idea of creating an exponential India. And exponential India, in my view, is about activating 1 billion people around all of the global grand challenges that we can solve for right in our country. The youth are a real powerful force for the future, not just because we have all of the resources at hand, but because we have something that most people don't. We have the numbers, and we have the diversity, and we have the inclusion mindset that is necessary. I feel like the youth today are way more inclusive than was my family or my parents' generation. You don't see the borders that we did, and I feel like that is a gift that the youth have. And I'd like to harness that gift to create a better future. We the Future is about that. I, in fact, want to do We the Future from India, so that I'm in India, Lara's here in New York, someone's in London, someone's in Japan, someone's in Shanghai, to melt those borders. And I feel like that's what the youth is doing. And I feel like that's how I want to affect a billion lives, to bring us together without borders, and really come together to create a future that not only we're proud of, but we belong in. And that's very important, that each person, whether it be one or a billion, feel like they belong and they're needed.
We all truly belong, and thank you for that initiative. We all look forward to being a part of We the Future. At this point, I'm going to bring the future now into the equation, and I have a young voice with me today, Ashima, who is a young professional and also member of our young global volunteer community. She has a couple of questions for you. Ashima, please introduce yourself and ask your questions.
I'm ready for the tough ones.
Thank you, Kunal sir. So I'm Ashima. I'm currently working as a management consultant at an impact consulting firm. So I'll jump right into the question. So my first question to you is, without significant progress on SDG 17, achieving the rest of the first 16 goals will be a near impossible task. The fact that some of the world's richest countries are essentially failing SDG 17 is very troubling. How can we address this problem?
So it's a fantastic question. I really believe that you're absolutely on the pulse of the truth, that many of the richest countries are failing. And that's because we're drawn and also attached to the sense of power and control, right? We're not willing to give up control or power. You just look at a child and a parent relationship. Until a certain point, they just want to keep you in their cocoon. My dad still feels like the all solutions line coming home, and I think what happens with that is there's goodness to that. It's not all terrible, but there's also a weakness. I think this is the weakness that you're speaking to around some of the most powerful nations like the United States and others that are not willing to relinquish power, and therefore they are failing at the idea of attaining the sustainable development goals. Like Trump, he withdrew from the Paris Accord, for example, right, for climate change. And now, on one end, we can blame him for doing that and victimize ourselves and make him the perpetrator. Or the other end is we can look at ourselves and figure out a new radical solution that exists, right? And I really believe that exists. And this is where my favorite saying in the world is, never doubt the commitment of a small group of extraordinary citizens. This is Margaret Mead's quote about extraordinary citizens of the world, that coming together is the most important thing, that are deeply committed to solving for a goal or a global grand challenge. And I feel like that's what will make the difference. It's a small group of outliers, a small group of people that are not in government, or maybe in government but on the fringes, who don't believe in the same mindset that you said has failed the system and will nearly make it impossible for us to sustainably and actually achieve these sustainable goals. I really believe that's what's going to happen. I believe that it's going to be a small group of brave citizens that show up from nowhere, just like Mahatma Gandhi, just like Martin Luther King, just like Nelson Mandela did. And it's going to be a fight. It's not going to be easy. Nothing in life is going to be easy moving forward. And that's why I tell people that this whole idea of happiness and human flourishing, it's going to come at a cost and a lot of pain and suffering. But if you can, the beauty of pain is that if you can bear your own pain, and if you can suffer enough that you can bear other people's pain, that is the greatest gift. To bear your own and bear others' pain so much that you can give other people hope and show them that there's a way forward. I really believe that is going to be the people and the citizens and the human beings that rise up against these naysayers and who are making it impossible for us to solve for our global grand challenges. And I feel that's what we need to focus on, finding each other, supporting each other, caring for each other, and loving one another. Love is a very powerful force. We see it in our Hindi movies over there. But the truth is, there's a deeper love that exists in our nation, and that is of our family and of our culture. I believe we belong to some of the most extraordinary cultures of the world. And I say cultures because India has so many vibrant cultures and religions and languages and traditions. And if we could harness all of that, the best of those cultures and the best people of those cultures, I feel we could actually completely triumph this fear of not realizing the global goals.
Thank you so much for such an insightful answer. So my last question to you is, what would be your 3 suggestions for the youth of today? How do you envision using technological innovation to transform the lives of people over the next decade and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development? And how do you think the youth can contribute to that?
Wow, they're like 3 questions in one. I love how she made like the 3 Aladdin's 3 wishes into one shot. You might have to ask me one by one. So I'll answer your first question.
Okay.
Well, if I got it correct, it was
3 suggestions for the youth of today.
3 suggestions for the youth of today. Okay, so the most important thing I think is don't be upset with your elders. There's this new rhetoric that I hear that, the elders or we screwed up the world. And that's just not true. Human beings have tried their best. Who knows? You guys might come up with some, invention in the future beyond oil and gas, which makes oil and gas look like COVID-19, a common cold. And tomorrow, hydrogen and solar, the whole world could be burning. And the future generation who's your age is going to be like, who's the jackass who came up with this hydrogen and solar idea? The world is burning now, So I'm just saying that I don't believe anger solves for anything. I believe it's a good emotion to have a constructive dialogue. But there's no point being angry at the past or at your parents. There's an expiration date. I love the way J.K. Rowling put it. She said that there's an expiry date on when you can keep blaming your parents for how you turned out, right? And so I feel like the greatest thing you can do is exercise compassion. That's the first thing. First thing is I think the youth need to exercise compassion on the elders, because the elders have also done their best to give us a good life. Case in point, our own parents. They did their best. So I think that's the first thing, is that we must exercise compassion and forgive the elders, right? The second thing I feel the youth should do is take charge, but share responsibility. So it's good to take charge and be in a leadership role, but don't make it this burden on your shoulders. Enjoy the process, enjoy the journey, because after all, if you enjoy the journey, you will inspire others also to be part of the journey. So I would say that, don't lighten up. Don't put so much weight on your shoulders. You don't have to save the world. Okay, that's not your job. You have to first transform yourself. So I would say that's a very important piece. The second piece I would, the third thing I would say youth could do really well is not to feel afraid to ask for help. Because I feel like a lot of the time the youth feel like we've got to solve this amongst each other, we're together, and we should not ask anyone for help unless they've got massive resources and cash, and that's the targeted person we'll go to. You don't know who's going to show up and help you with the right resources or allow you to see an opportunity as an opportunity versus a threat. So I would say the third thing is, really reach out and allow us to help so we can unite in action without fear or favor and make the impossible possible. Okay, second question.
All right. So, how do you envision using technological innovation to transform the lives of people over the next decade and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development? And how do you think the youth can contribute to that?
Oh, the youth are our future in technology and innovation. I think the most powerful way we can contribute to that is start to use exponential technologies like drone, 3D printing, nano, digital biology, all of that in ways that really serve you guys for the future. But the more important piece is you be open sourced about it. So you share your innovation. You start to really come from a place of less IP and more weepy, WE, instead of intellectual property, it's like we property, and create, instead of a utopia, a we-topia, where it's co-created by all of us. I really believe that's what the youth can do. That's what maybe past generations have failed to do, is to go from me to we. And innovation is largely done best when it's about harnessing the power of we. So the technology is just a driving tool. The truth is, you are the masters of the technology. So never to forget that. Don't let technology become the driving force. Don't become servants to technology. Rather, become the master commanders of the future by using technology to harness the power of the best possible future. That's something I would say innovation and technology should do, is to serve you as the future. The youth should be served by technology, not technology be served by the youth. And one more thing I would say about the youth contributing to that, and that is that we come from a very beautiful culture, right? India is a very beautiful country. I pride myself on my values, right? And one of the things I would ask the youth to do is to really keep your values intact. Practice value-based leadership. Enact your values in action. Let those values drive the technology that you see the future creating. For those values will become the force field that protects us from whatever dangers may lie in the future. So that's the one thing I would say is very important.
Thank you, Ashima, for your questions, and thank you, Kunal, for such a beautiful and insightful session. Thank you so much for taking time out and talking to us.
Thank you.
It's very difficult to sum up, when a session is so much packed with so much insights. But as a host, I'll try my best. As Kunal said, we must lead life that is true to ourselves. We must have a mindset of service, be radically collaborative and inclusive. We must work through fear and see each other as humans first. Try and serve something that is larger than yourself. Be in a state of joy and kindness through service. That's the only way to reach collective happiness. Let us all go from me to we and make the impossible possible, and hopefully build an exponential India and world. Thank you so much, Kunal, once again for joining us. But before I conclude the session, I have one last question for you.
Sure.
And that is, if you have to sum up your vision for a better world in one sentence, what would that be?
In one sentence, my vision for a better future would be that we go above and beyond we the people. We come together and serve something that's much larger than ourselves. Focus on making the impossible possible together, uniting in action the youth, the elder, women and men, left, the right, disabled, abled, and truly serve one another as we the planet. That's what I hope for the future.
Thank you so much, Kunal, for sharing that. And for everyone who is listening in and joining in, I hope you enjoyed the session. And remember, for a world where no one is left behind, it has never been clearer that all of us have a role to play in order to bring about change. Whoever you are, no matter where you come from, every one of us can make a difference. Every action truly counts. Get involved, attend the SDG Action Conclave 2020, participate in the SDG quiz, help raise awareness about the goals, and connect with a global community of passionate volunteers. This Global Goals Week, let us all come together to spread the knowledge about people, planet, and our sustainable development goals. Thank you once again all for joining us. Follow us on Instagram at Youth Forum India for all the updates. And don't forget to join our next session.